Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. It is Monday, November 25th. I spent last week covering the Laken Riley murder trial, and there were some developments in the cases we follow, so we're going to update on those today. I apologize, I'm a little late in getting these out, but when I'm covering a trial, there's just not enough hours in the day to update on the other cases, but we are going to tackle that now. We're going to start out with Diddy. He had a hearing last week that was almost 2 hours long. He's proposing another bail package totaling $50 million. People inside the courtroom said that Diddy looked thinner and he blew kisses to his family in attendance. By the way, this is his fourth attempt at bail, been denied 3 times, but the judge did not rule on this last request, and we should know something early this week. His attorney said the video of him beating his ex-girlfriend Cassie does not indicate a risk that he would act in a violent manner if he's released, saying that there's a 0 chance of that happening. And their defense of that video is that it was the end of a toxic 11-year relationship. But the prosecution pointed out that Diddy apologized himself on social media for beating her. They also pointed out that he attempted to bribe hotel staff, asking them to delete the footage. And they say that that in itself is evidence Diddy tried to hide evidence of his crimes. They also say he's tried to influence potential jurors from jail through his family and getting them to post positive things on his social media accounts, which are still active. They also allege he has communicated with his attorneys through unauthorized channels. Diddy's attorney says that Diddy has a right to respond to negative press that could make him look bad to potential jurors. The prosecution said the defendant here has demonstrated that either he cannot or will not follow rules. The defendant, simply put, cannot be trusted. When going over the bail package, the judge did say that Diddy's home in Miami would not be an option for him if he is released due to the fact that home has a dock. His attorneys are proposing that Diddy stays at his place in New York City. His defense attorneys say that the bond conditions are actually far more restrictive than the rules in jail. They propose only phone calls to his attorneys, no visits from anyone other than specific family members, as well as his attorneys, a visitor log, and no contact with witnesses or potential witnesses. They also say they will have a private security staff monitoring Diddy 24/7. The judge is expected to rule anytime this week. Curious to see if he gets out. Diddy did get a small legal win last week. His jail cell was raided, and they found 19 pages of handwritten notes, which were seized by jail staff. The prosecution said the raid was justified due to concerns Diddy is influencing witnesses and swaying jurors. His defense attorneys say it was privileged information. And the judge ruled the prosecution must destroy those papers. They cannot be used in the case until a final ruling is made to determine whether they are admissible or not. I will keep you guys updated. If you're not subscribed on YouTube, go subscribe and hit that little bell for notifications. If we find out whether or not he's granted bond, I will do a YouTube short. So with those notifications enabled, you will know when I post something. Moving on to Lori Vallow. She had a competency hearing on November 20th, and she actually spoke at that hearing. I'm going to let you guys listen to it now. I was able to get the audio and enhance it. So let's see what Lori had to say when answering the judge's questions.
Ma'am, I am going to ask you a series of questions, and that could inform what happens next. Have you previously in any other criminal proceeding been referred for a competency determination?
Just say yes. Yes, previously.
All right. And were you ever previously determined to be incompetent at any point?
Not to my understanding. So my understanding was that the judge did the same thing that you did, in abundance of caution. Let's go ahead and put her in and see. And I came out competent.
Well, when you say you came out competent, was there a period of time where you were ruled as incompetent.
I would say technically they did do that. That's how they put you into the program in that state. Correct.
How long were you in that program?
I was in that program for about 10 months.
Okay. And what types of things did they give you? Classes? What types of things did they speak to you about where you went through some process where you were later deemed competent?
I did go through a process of several things, several classes, competency class, and meeting with doctors and evaluators, many evaluators.
Are you aware of any diagnosis that you were given?
Yes.
And what is that?
We're going to object to that, especially with this being public and not sealed.
It's all relevant to this determination.
Okay, well then.
This was almost 2 weeks
okay.
ago.
Then I'm going to keep her in the Rule 11 process to determine that. And
Approach and discuss with you without it being on the without public on the record, but not public.
you mean as far as the diagnosis?
Yes.
Sure.
Lori has spoken to one mental health expert there in Arizona, and the prosecutor asked the judge to order Lori to see a second mental health expert. Her attorney said that we're going down a rabbit hole. If she doesn't want to talk to the doctors, she doesn't have to talk to the doctors. The judge said that Lori's previous attorneys says that she has delusions, and Lori herself admitted that she was incompetent for 10 months in Idaho, and that was enough for him to rule the competency evaluations should continue. He denied her defense attorney's motion to withdraw the request her previous attorneys made, which requested that competency evaluation. As far as Lori wanting to represent herself, the judge held off on ruling on that until after these competency evaluations are finished. And back in Idaho, there is an order now that the brief that is due for Lori's appeal is reset, and now that is due December 26th. Moving on to Bryan Kohberger. A judge has ruled that the death penalty can stay on the table if he's convicted of murdering Xana, Maddie, Ethan, and Kaylee. His attorneys argued that forcing inmates to wait on death row for the state to decide the method of execution is cruel and unusual. His attorneys also filed a motion to have a Franks hearing, saying that they want a judge to determine if a police officer involved provided false information in order to secure a search warrant. His attorneys say that using the genetic genealogy to match his DNA to the knife sheath that was found under one of the victims' bodies was unconstitutional. This judge is pretty no nonsense. He responded to their filing and said the motion has 38 exhibits and it's over 2,000 pages long. He said the motion fails to identify the relevant portions of the exhibits, instead referring simply to the exhibit number and not identifying the actual pages at issue. That leaves the court to sift through pages and pages of irrelevant documents to ascertain what portion the defendant may be referring to. The judge told the defense in order for that motion to be considered, the defense will need to file a revised memorandum identifying the relevant portions of the record by page number and line number. The defense also must resubmit their supporting exhibits to exclude portions that aren't relevant to this motion. He set a deadline for tomorrow, November 26th, for them to submit that revised filing. His trial scheduled to start in August of next year. The Menendez brothers have a status conference today in Van Nuys, California. There will be no videotaping of the proceedings and also no photography. They are expected to appear remotely. As for the media, there is a lottery system for 16 seats. The hearing is really just expected to be a check-in of where these proceedings stand as of now. As you guys know, the now voted out Los Angeles District Attorney recommended resentencing for the brothers in light of new evidence. Governor Gavin Newsom had the option to grant clemency to the brothers, but he kicked the can back to the newly elected DA for resentencing consideration instead of granting clemency. Their scheduled December 11th hearing for that resentencing could be delayed. The new DA said he needs time to go through the case, and there is a lot to go through. We'll keep you guys posted. Moving on to Susan Smith. This was a local case for me. I was in high school when this happened. Remember it like it was yesterday. This was the first true crime case that I ever followed from beginning to end. And as you guys know by now, Susan was denied parole last week. Just a reminder, she was convicted in the 1994 murders of her sons, 3-year-old Michael and 14-month-old Alex, by rolling her car into John D. Long Lake here in the upstate of South Carolina while those boys were strapped in their car seats. You know, when this case happened, it was before the internet. It was all over our local news constantly. Everybody in this area was looking for a red Mazda, even though we all knew she did it. I don't think many people really believed her. Well, the parole hearing was very emotional, with law enforcement and prosecutors giving statements, as well as the boy's dad, David. His wife gave a statement, and his daughter. Let's listen to David's statement that he gave to the parole board now.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee. It's been a tough 30 years. I'm not here to speak about what she's done in prison. You all have the records and accounts of all that. Just here to advocate on Michael and Alex's behalf and as their father. You know, God gives us free choice. And she made free choice that night to end their life. This wasn't a tragic mistake. It wasn't something that she didn't mean to do. She purposely meant to end their life. I never have felt any remorse from her for it. She's never expressed any to me. I never seen it on paper. No, you've heard, she changed my life for the rest of my life that night. Some for the better, some for the worse, but what she did, not only to Michael and Alex, she came pretty close to causing me to end my life because of the grief that she brought upon me. But thankfully she didn't. I understand back in 95 that through the state's law, life in prison meant 30 years to life. And now that's different, but at that time, that's what counts. I understand that. But ultimately, to me, that's only 15 years per child. Her own children. It's just not enough. So I'm asking that you please deny her parole today. And hopefully in the future, but specifically today. Not let her out. I miss them very much. And I love them very much. But I will be here every 2 years going forward to ensure that their death doesn't go in vain. Thank you.
Now, at her trial, the defense argued she was troubled and was experiencing severe depression. We all know it's because her lover made clear he did not want to be with a woman who had children. Their defense was that Susan intended to take her own life as well as the lives of her sons, but she got out of the car. In her car, they found a lot of things, including her wedding dress to David and their wedding album. Since she's been incarcerated, she's been in trouble a good bit. In 2000, she admitted to having sex with a prison guard. That guard was sentenced to 3 months in prison. A year later, a police captain admitting to having sex with her, he received 5 years probation. And because of this, they moved her to a prison in Greenwood, South Carolina. In March and April of 2010, she was disciplined for using marijuana as well as an unauthorized drug or inhalant. Also in April of 2010, she was disciplined for mutilation. For that, she lost privileges for 90 days. In 2012, she was disciplined for using another inmate's PIN number. We don't know if that was for commissary or phone or what, but for that, she lost privileges for 240 days. In March of 2015, she was disciplined again for using marijuana and an unauthorized drug or inhalant. For all the drug infractions, she lost canteen privileges, phone and visitation privileges for up to a year, and she was placed into a restrictive housing unit for up to 60 days for disciplinary detention. The newest infraction was, I believe, in August of this year, and she was talking to a documentary producer and profiting from her crime. She's had several jobs while in prison, and the latest is a ward keeper assistant. I looked that up. She started this back in April of this year, and that job is described as someone who helps in day-to-day operations at a prison. Brian Enton from News Nation reported that Susan was not happy. After being denied parole, a witness from the prison said she was pissed. She was angry, crying, waving her hands, very agitated. It looked like she threw a tantrum. Her fellow inmates were not sympathetic. The person said the girls pretty much all think it's funny. She walks around here like she rules the roost. Guess what? You don't. You're just like everybody else. I don't think she was thinking about her sons at the parole hearing. She was clearly just thinking about herself. When she spoke and started crying, y'all, I got flashbacks to the fake crying on the news, pleading for her sons with no tears. David gave an interview recently. He said he has very little memories of Michael and Alex. He remembers bits and pieces. His therapist told him it was maybe his body's way of protecting itself, and maybe those memories would come back, but so far they haven't. And that just breaks my heart because we know as time moves on, things get more fuzzy, but these boys live such a short life that those memories are very limited anyway by time. But to think that he really doesn't have any solid memories of his sons, it's just devastating to think about. Those boys and David will always hold a special place in all of our hearts here in South Carolina because they were our neighbors. They were one of our own. And I hope she never gets out. And I don't think she will. But that is it for today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you soon.